If you don't know how to do drywall repair, you have come to the right place. I'm going to show you today how to do a repair. If you have no skill at all, if you've never done a repair, I can show you step for step how easy it is, and it'll be flawless when we're done. What we're doing here first, and we're going to talk a little technical here, but we're adding backing to the repair. The piece that you fill the hole in, you need something to screw to. So that's what we're doing here. I like to use just this OBS board. I just cut it in strips. You can use 2x4, 2x3, really any wood is going to work fine. So you have something for that patch to screw to. An extremely important step to do is you're going to want to clean up the hole, I call it. So any loose debris that's hanging onto the wood, you'll want to kind of take that knife and clean it away. And the main reason is when you go to install your piece of drywall, it doesn't sit on that piece and then stick out what I call plus further than the wall. That'll provide a bad patch if that happens.
Call it 19. 17, we'll call it 19, 18.
I'm grabbing measurements here. A lot of people super overthink this step, and I promise you it just doesn't matter. If your measurement is 19 1/4 or whatever, just knock it back 1/4 inch and make it 19. Or just, you want the hole to be just a little bit smaller because you don't want to fight it. Nobody wants to fight anything. Don't overthink this, and as we go along, this will make a whole lot of sense. All right, I have my rough piece cut. This square itself isn't cut parallel or perpendicular or whatever. The plumber's left me this hole. So what I'm doing is I'm just kind of putting my new piece up there and understanding what little bits I need to cut off the patch. And there's lots of ways to do this. I just find this to be the easiest. I don't like to cut out more wall. I just want to cut out the patch a little bit. So hang out with me and watch this, and it slides right in. All right, guys, there we go. It finally fit. How surprising. If I could do that, so could you. Just hack that thing up till it fits semi-decent. See those gaps there? It's just not that big of a deal. Now we're going to screw it in. Screwing is semi-important. We want to screw the screws in so they don't go past the white paper. So you just barely put it in so it just barely is flush with the drywall. We're just kind of adding screws everywhere. We want them on all the corners and all the where the new drywall is. And we just want that nice and secure. Any movement potentially would cause cracking, and we don't want that.
Yeah, not too bad. I'm doing, so this, I forget my count. I'm either 14 or 15. Maybe I'll do that one if it's 14 to make it 15.
Oh, okay. What count you're at is like how many you've done so far?
Yeah,
Oh,
so
okay.
I think, I forgot this one. We didn't count this
I
one,
didn't
remember?
see that.
And even that counts as one.
Yeah, I didn't see
So,
well, that's good.
so I might do that one as my 15 if I'll have to recount.
Okay.
But I just got a few left here.
Awesome.
All right, so what we're going to do now is take a fresh knife, and I'm going to clean up the edges because I don't want any of the frayed paper sticking out. What I call zero, the regular wall plane, I want that to be just flush. I don't want anything plus sticking out because when I add the mud and the tape, I don't want that to stick out any further than it needs to. So I want this really, really smooth. And if you see me cutting, just mimic that. All right, it is time to mud. I like to use 20-minute mud, but you could use all-purpose. You could use anything you want. If you use all-purpose, you need to wait even longer for things to dry. This mud here dries in about 15-20 minutes. And do you see how messy I'm doing this? That is totally okay. That's something you guys could do. So we slather it on. I call this pre-fill. Slather it on really good. We're just filling in those cracks. And then you completely take it away like it never was there. And it is just inside the pre-fill. If you notice, I'm going parallel to the seam, and so the pre-fill stayed in the gap, but everything else went away. I am using ultra thin mesh tape here. I find that going to be the best for repairs. I do the two opposite sides. I take a knife, I'm going to wipe it down to smooth it out, and then I'm going to do the other side with the tape. Okay, next we're going to do something I call tape coat. So we've added the mesh tape, and now we're adding with a 6-inch knife mud on top of the tape. And paper tape and mesh tape, a little bit different theory. So this is how you're going to do mesh tape. And look how messy that is. You guys can do this. Just slap it up there so you have a lot of material to work with. Next, what we need to do is start taking that mud back off the wall. I like to start by feathering the outer edge. I'm going to then feather the inner edge. Then I'll take my 6-inch knife and kind of wipe down the middle where the seam is and start taking all that mud off. And I'm taking it off as if it never was there. I'm not wiping terribly hard, but I'm basically taking it all back off. On this layer too, what I like to do is take my knife and I'm going to go into the seam and start shoving the mud in the cracks so we don't have any high points. Oh, here we go. So we don't have any weird high points, so when it dries, so I'll kind of have to pre-fill this area again, which you'll see shortly. But this, to me, is just the easiest way to do it. All right, I let this dry about 15 minutes. I'm gonna now take just a knife, it could be the 6-inch or the 12, and I'm gonna scrape off any high points. And I'm trying to make everything at least 0 or negative of the original wall. I don't want anything sticking out. And if I do, I scrape it off, bang it in, cut it out, whatever I need to do to make things nice and flat. And then I'll start the next layer. Similar as the last layer, I just get a bunch of mud on my knife and I just start slathering it on the wall so I have material on the project to work with. I don't care how much is on the wall, because geez, man, that is a lot of mud, guy. But that's okay. So now we're going to start taking it back off in the exact same step. I'm going to bend that knife. I'm going to feather the outside. I'm going to then feather the middle. And then I'm going to wipe down the middle of the patch and start taking off that mud. And again, I am taking the mud back off as if it wasn't supposed to be there. I'm taking it all back off, but there'll be a minor bit of mud left on the wall. And that's the technique I like to do. All right, I let that dry another 15 minutes, and the same exact thing. I'm taking that knife, I'm scraping off any weird high points, any issues we might have, because again, I want things to be 0 or negative from the original wall. And guess what I'm going to do next? I'm going to slather a whole bunch of mud along the seam. This is my final quick set layer, so that's why I filled in the middle. So I'm not going to feather out the middle because I want that point to kind of be the same height. So we have mud everywhere. So now I'm feathering the outside. I am taking that knife and I'm doing the exact same thing. I'm trying to take all that mud back off. That knife is nice and straight, so I can rely on it to give an even spread kind of everywhere. I'm following the lines of where the seam once was. What I promise you guys is just don't overthink this. Put mud on that wall and start taking it off, and it really will smooth out. All right, guys, this is going to be the very final layer. I'm going to kind of do 2 layers here. I'm going to do a topping coat, a final topping coat, and then I'm going to add texture on top of that. First thing what I'm doing is, you guessed it, scraping off any weird high points, any lap marks, or any weirdness. There was a patch below this that I haven't really talked about, and I just kind of combine this step into that. So I apologize I didn't really talk about that bottom one. But what I'm doing here is I'm just covering up all the quickset with this topping. See how it's a little bit different color? And I just slather it up there. I don't care what it looks like right now. Once I have mud over the whole project, I feather the outside edge. That's the most important thing about a patch, is the transition from the old drywall into the new patch. You want that to be nice and smooth. So that's why I always feather first. I'm now taking my knife and I'm just taking all of that topping back off. So there's just a super duper thin layer on the wall. All right, guys, it is texture time. Do you see that little bit of mud on my knife? Texture! Okay, guys, so I put a little bit of mud. I have it nice and flat like that. Then I set it on there, and then I just kind of wipe until it skips a little bit. And this is the beginning of a texture. So what we're going to do is I like to just put this all over, and then I start smoothing it out until it matches the existing texture. You'll notice right here, I kind of wipe back off and then reapply. That I had too much mud in that area, so it was flattening it out too much. So that's what I did. I wiped off heavy and then I reapplied. And then I just keep wiping until it's the desired texture. You'll notice I do a lot of wiping here, and this part goes about a minute. But we really want to wipe it so there's no excessive lines, that the texture matches the existing texture. So this is a little bit artsy, and honestly, the mud's still wet, so you have plenty of time to play around and match that texture. Topping takes the longest to dry. This probably dried for, 20 minutes. I had a fan on it. And now we're going to sand. The most important thing about sanding is you have a flashlight and you sand the feather. That is the most important part. You sand the transition from where the white new mud is and where the paste is, because you don't want to see where the patch started. So you'll notice I concentrate most on the feathers, and then I start sanding in the middle. Holding a light to the edge like this really helps kind of reveal any imperfections or issues, and I get up close for you guys to see. Take a look at that, the original, and then the stuff we did. It looks absolutely identical. You don't see any seams, any humps, any transitions. This is a perfect patch. If you guys follow these steps, you too can create a perfect patch with no skill.